Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Teacher Talks, the show where we interview teachers about their high school experiences and our modern high school culture.
Today's guest is Mr. Moveni, and he is a math teacher currently teaching Math 1, Calculus AB, and BC. He graduated from Stanford and is here to talk to us about his experience in high school, the shift in technology in school, and the skills he took from high school.
Our first question was what is a difference? It could be just one or two things, but what was a difference about school back then to school like today, how you see it today?
Mm. I think there's a lot that goes into that, honestly, and I thank you for giving me the question ahead of time because I had to think about it. I think one of the biggest differences between my high school experience and what it's like nowadays is the widespread use of technology and the speed and breadth of resources that are available to students.
Okay.
And I think a lot of teachers will agree with me where we feel frustrated sometimes when students come up to us and say like, oh, I didn't understand this thing. Can you explain it? When the teachers essentially come back with, well, did you check the answers? Did you look at this resource? Did you look at that resource? And I had to double check myself in regards to where was I coming from whenever I have kind of a negative reaction to a student asking that. And I think where it stems from is when I was in high school, at least, the only resource I had was literally the textbook. And that was it. And if I was lucky enough that the teacher assigned me the odd problems, then at least I would have the answers in the back of the book to the odd questions, right? Or for math, for clarification's sake. And heaven forbid if the teacher assigns you an even numbered problem because now you had nothing, right? And I remember as a kid, when I was in my math classes, I had to essentially I had to teach myself how to reverse engineer my work. And so whenever I did a problem, I remember actually having one hand at the back of the book, or I would put an index card back there. But I remember having one hand at the back of the book and then the other hand actually writing out my math. And as soon as I finished a problem, I would immediately check my answer. And if the answer was correct, I'd be like, okay, cool, and then keep going. But if the answer was wrong, then I'm like, after swearing first, I would go back and I would check my work and be like, okay, what did I do wrong? How did I get this? I would try the problem a second time. If I got it wrong a second time, then I'd be like, okay, what is actually going on here? And then that's when I would start to reverse engineer. I would start with the answer and work my way backwards through the problem to get to the original problem. And if even that didn't work, if I had no idea how to even navigate this thing, I would have to look through the textbook and look at the other examples that were written out. But of course, the examples are not videos. The examples are not like someone standing over my shoulder talking me through it. So I had to seriously read the work, and I had to read between the lines because not every single thing is written out and explained for you. And I think a lot of your teachers at this age now had that similar experience where we had to essentially figure it out for ourselves with limited resources. Oh, and one more thing. Sorry, I'm kind of rambling, but one other thing that I think is a really stark difference is our grades. I didn't know what my grade was until the progress report and the final report. I only knew what my grade was 4 times out of the year. I went to a 4x4 school as well. I only knew what my grade was 4 times out of the year when it got mailed home. Unless I took time out of my day and asked my teacher point blank, like, hey, can you look up my grade right now? And it's very different because now, not only do you guys have access to Aries 24/7 online, but you also have the app and stuff like that. Some of you just straight up get notifications. As soon as I update your grade, you know what your grade is, right?
And you see all your missing assignments.
Exactly.
And know what you have to do.
Exactly. Right? And, not only that, but your parents know it as well. So now it's there's never a separation between school and home for you kids. And then when it comes to the resources, and this is finally going back to where I started this whole ramble, the teachers that make stuff available online, right? So I have all my slides, I have work solutions, and I have all these solutions that are available on Canvas, and I organize it in a way so that you can find it pretty easily.
Yeah.
And if you don't like the way that I have things set up, you can always just YouTube it, right?
Yeah, or Google it.
And like that's the thing, yeah, you can Google it, and now you have Google AI that can summarize stuff for you, right? That's that. And then I remember back in my day, YouTube wasn't a place that like you really learn stuff from.
Not really, no.
And so like the prevalence and the speed of like all of these resources that are really at your fingertips at any time you want, that's a huge difference compared to how it was when I was in high school. And I think it's a huge benefit for you. You have all this stuff. But the thing is, you are now navigating in a space where it doesn't require you to build the same skills I needed to build.
Oh, wow.
Right?
See, I get
so
it,
going back to like my math problems, I only had the answer. I didn't have the worked solution, and I only had the answer for the odd problems, right?
Yeah.
So I had to teach myself how to read a math textbook, which is a unique skill. I had to go through the examples. I had to make sure I took really good notes in class. I had to reverse engineer my problems. You kids don't really need to do that because you have different resources.
Yeah.
Right? And then when it comes to just this kind of like separation between school and home, like by the time I got home, like I'm not going to be emailing my teachers. I can't do that.
Yeah.
I don't have a remind app, so I can just be like, oh, hey, Mrs. So-and-so, like, what did I do, right? But you kids have that all the time.
Oh, yeah.
So how do you separate school and home, right? How do you separate your school life and your work life? Or excuse me, your school and your like normal personal lives, right? And so it's a very different thing. The lack of resources that I had forced me to develop those skills of trying to figure stuff out on my own. I think part of that process as well is what encouraged my generation to be much more collaborative than your generation, right? You kids, when you come across a problem that you don't know how to solve yourself, your first go-to is to look it up, right?
Yeah.
Not necessarily to ask your neighbor, because sometimes, let's be honest, it's difficult to put into words what it is you don't understand so that you can ask
for sure.
pointedly,
For sure.
right? I'm sure everyone has had the experience of I know I don't know something, but I don't know it so much that I don't know how to ask.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so trying to actually sit next to your neighbor or someone else in class and be like, how do you do this problem? That's sometimes hard to do. And so your go-to is to look it up, find a YouTube video, find like a solution manual somewhere and something like that. So you're much more independent than my generation was. We didn't have those resources. I couldn't just look it up myself.
Yeah.
So I did have to ask my neighbors. My classmates were more of a resource to me back then than perhaps your classmates are now.
Yeah.
Not that your classmates are not capable, but again, I think it's just kind of the environments that we navigated had different settings. And because our environments were so different, you are developing different skills than I did.
Oh, yeah, I see.
So,
Yeah.
What was your favorite school event that happened at Mission Vista, and when were you in high school? And when you were in high school?
so my favorite event here,
Yeah.
and my favorite event
When you were in high school.
when I was in high school. Oh man, my favorite event here. You know, this actually goes through all of my years teaching. One of my favorite events is actually the dances. I really like attending the dances. My favorite thing to do is to do the coat check, because I get to see all the students come in, and all the students are like, dressed to the nines, and they're like, putting on their Sunday best and all that jazz. One of the things I always find hilarious is when students come in with their like high heels, but the very first thing they do is switch into their flats.
Yeah.
I always think that's funny. But it's nice to see the kids get excited, and it's nice to see them all like, dressed up real nice.
Of course.
And so it's fun to be part of that like happier environment as opposed to like the drudgery of trying to do math at 8:30 in the morning. So it's a nice change of pace.
That's sweet.
Yeah, I like that. I also really like that I have seen students be really kind to each other. And I've seen students go out of their way to actually help and support each other, which this goes back to the whole like collaboration thing.
Yeah.
So it's good to see when students actually do that. Like when Mr. Otteson and I hosted the AP mock exam, and the students came here on a Saturday, 9 in the morning,
Yeah.
like who wants to do math at that time?
Yeah.
Yet they came in and they had such camaraderie about it. And I think that's something that's really nice. I think that's one of my favorite things I've seen at Mission Vista so far.
Yeah, I get that.
When I was in high school, I have a few. I think one of my favorite things we did was our senior prank, actually.
Oh, really?
And so senior pranks usually like have a notoriety of being like destructive.
Yeah.
But our senior prank was we came onto campus and we brought a whole bunch of cardboard boxes and we built a cardboard zoo in the middle of our courtyard. And so we like set up like cardboard pens and we like cut out cardboard animals, like we had a giraffe and stuff like that. And I think the best part about it all was there were teachers that were helping us.
Oh,
And
that's
so
great.
like and
That's
so
great.
like in the middle of the night we just like built a whole bunch of cardboard animals and stuff like that. I graduated in 2007, and so the 200 kind of spells out zoo, right? And so that's why we did a zoo.
That's great.
And it was just a cute, harmless thing,
Yeah.
right? And then the students and even the teachers helped to break it down at the end of the day. We didn't just leave it for the custodial
of course.
staff, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that was really nice. I was lucky to have a school that had that kind of that feeling of camaraderie where we
Yeah.
did something nice and it wasn't destructive,
Yeah.
but it was just a cool thing to do together as a group.
Yeah.
On the other end of that, on the destructive part of it, our AP physics teacher would have the AP physics students as their final project build potato cannons. And whoever launched it the furthest or whoever launched their potato the highest would get the highest grade in the class, or on the project at least. And the class did put a couple holes in the side of the gym. So that it was just, it's kind of funny just to have that.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm not encouraging destruction of public property.
Yes.
No way they did it in the gym. Not like
The way that the school was built, it's been renovated now, and so it doesn't look like the way it did when I was in high school. But the side of the gym had like this kind of like shingles on the side of it, and we would of course stand on one end of this like open field courtyard and just launch the cannons, right? And like, like we're kids, we don't exactly know what we're building or how to build it well, but some of the kids who did know what they were doing, they launched it with enough power that it went all the way across the field and smashed into the side of the
That's
wall.
insane.
Yeah, so that's that's goofy fun.
I think for us, why would you say like senior pranks now are very much restricted and limited? Do you think it's more because like students are like more, I guess, destructive or like more?
Oh, hey, what's the latest trend on TikTok right now with Chromebooks?
Oh yeah,
Oh,
destroying,
yeah.
just completely destroying a
Yeah.
Chromebook.
literally like
Yeah, you think it's
smoking
just
them out.
because I guess kids are like want attention online maybe a little bit, and it's like they want to film themselves doing it.
I'm no psychologist. I can't really make a claim.
Yeah.
I can't help but feel that perhaps there's the performative aspect of it,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Trying to be like, standoutish, trying to be cool, and in some regards, destruction is cool. Because like, everyone knows that cool guys don't look at explosions, but like part of that is there has to be an explosion.
Yeah.
There's also something, I guess, exhilarating about like breaking the rules, but like the thing that bothers me most about it is it just feels mean-spirited, right?
I get that.
Just the wanton destruction without any regard to like the consequences.
Yeah.
Because like, okay, you could just be doing a Chromebook challenge where how high can you throw it into the air and catch it without
Yeah.
dropping it. That's a challenge.
Yeah.
But like the destruction, like the purposeful setting of fires, and it's a lithium battery.
Yeah.
So not only is there fire, which I'm sorry, but Southern California, fire, they don't mix well.
No,
Yeah.
not at all.
First of all. Second of all, the like acidic smoke that comes from burning a lithium battery, right? And how that could easily, seriously, and permanently damage someone.
Yeah. Of course.
If not just straight up kill them. So I feel that senior pranks do have a history and a reputation of being destructive. My senior prank was, harmless and cheeky, right? What's the point of senior prank? What's the point of senior ditch day? It's supposed to be a community thing.
Yeah, I get that.
But nowadays, do you kids really feel like you're part of a large community?
Not as much anymore. And I would rather having that community. I think, in my opinion, I enjoy being part of something where, like, we're kind of all working together on something, or we're all just kind of having fun in a way that isn't harmless to other people. And so I really, if I were to do a senior prank, I love that idea of the zoo, where it's like everyone's working together on something and you make this kind of, like, you create something and it's fun. And then at the end of the day, you take it all down and you clean it up and there's no mess.
It's,
I love that idea.
It's that sense of community. But the problem is, like you said before, what's your go-to when you need to figure out something? You go to Google. Right? And so it's kind of that vicious cycle where it's like, how do you stand out in a crowd of individuals? As opposed to how do you stand together as part of a community?
How did school back then prepare you for the things that you engage in today?
And it's sadly kind of hard to answer, because, like, sure, I'm a math teacher right now, right? But when I was your age, when I was in school, I didn't actually know what I wanted to be when I got older. Even when it came time to start applying for colleges and stuff like that, I didn't really have a clear goal. I say that now, but when I was your age, I had a plan. Like, I knew exactly what I was going to do, and I knew exactly what I was going to do after college as well. So I studied. I got my undergraduate degree in international business and Japanese, and that's what I thought I wanted to do. Right. All throughout high school, all throughout college, I studied Japanese. I studied business. And I thought I was going to be, like, wheeling and dealing across the seas and skyscrapers and stuff like that. I wish I had taken time to reflect on that before I went down that path. But to answer your question, even though I'm a math teacher now, like, I don't get paid to just, like, sit in a room and do the Pythagorean theorem all day, right? And it goes back to kind of the how I navigated high school, where every time I had a problem and I didn't know what the answer to it was, I had to figure out the answer. And so how do I navigate answering that particular question? I go to the back of the book. The back of the book has limited, like, information. So how do I take that information and how do I apply it to the context in which I'm in? How can I take that particular skill and apply it in a different area? And so, like, the dates that you learn in your history class, or, like, the individual skill of writing a thesis statement in your English class, like, you're never going to be employed to just do those small individual skills. But that's not what the point of school is. The point of school is to essentially give you this kind of, like, sample platter of, here are different ways that you can navigate through knowledge. Here are different tasks that you must achieve one way or another. Your teachers arm you with different ways of approaching different things. Like, this is what makes a really good thesis statement. We study history so that we can see the progression of events throughout, like, human time, and use that as a way to explain our current situation. In, like, all of the sciences, it doesn't matter which science you are specifically focusing on, but they all have an underlying current, the scientific process of going through this, like, hey, I have an idea, let's experiment, let's go ahead and look for evidence to support something, and if the evidence doesn't support my assumptions, I need to adjust my assumptions. Those are the main ideas that arm you for adulthood, because when you actually get into adulthood and you have to navigate, like, this realm that is, okay, well, what's the job market look like? I need to find housing. I need to balance a checkbook for, groceries and housing and all this stuff. how do I navigate my personal life on top of my work responsibilities? And all of these soft skills are the skills that you essentially get to practice, and in fact are forced to practice in school. And school is the safe place to actually engage in those topics and to engage those skills. It's like wading in the shallow end of a pool where you're safe enough where you can stand in the 3-foot end of the pool in case you don't know how to swim.
Yeah.
But that's not the point of the shallow end. The point of the shallow end is to practice so that you can learn to swim. So that when you finally jump into the deep end, when you can't just stand, you have to swim.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like the skills that I learned in high school was not specifically like, how do I say Japanese station in Japanese, right? The skills I learned in high school is not how to like throw a pot in my ceramics class.
Yeah.
The skills I learned in high school that I take with me today are, how do I approach a novel situation that I may not have been in before, but I still have some kind of skills that I can take from my prior experiences and I can apply them now here. That's the things that you need to do.
I see.
So,
I think our last question for you, it's one that I think is a pretty good question. What would you tell your younger self if you could tell them only one thing?
the only person you can compare yourself to is who you were yesterday.
I like that.
I have an older brother, and he is very well accomplished in his field. And he and I were very close in high school, but we went in completely different paths. And so trying to compare myself to him, that was never setting myself up well for success. And I think there's some sort of saying, I'm going to butcher it right now, but it's like comparison is the thief of joy, something like that. And it's, like, how can you ever compare yourself to someone else, right? Like, okay, you got like a 98%, but someone else got 100% on this most recent test. Like, well, did you have the same experience learning it? Did you spend the same amount of time studying it? Do you have the same type of obligations that distracted you or supported you in your test? Like, how do you really compare that, right? But then the way I look at life right now is, like, at the end of the day, every single day, you have to go to sleep with yourself. And so the only constant in your life is who you are. And if you ever want to improve, then you have to look at who you are as a person and to look at what more you can improve upon. This is not to say that we're all, like, in need of improvement. But there's no real point in comparing myself to someone else. There's no real point in comparing myself to someone who has had different experiences, who has different resources. And what's important instead for me to keep in mind is I should focus on who I am and what I want and what I need to do to get to my goals. When I was your age, that was harder for me to see. So if I could tell myself when I was your age something, I think it would be something like that.
Okay, that's pretty cool. Well, we appreciate you, appreciate your time.
Sure.
You've said a lot of very insightful things, a lot of things that definitely inspired me and also opened my eyes to something and made me a bit more reflective. But yeah, I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you guys. And thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
Of course.